Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the 5 greatest Rossini recordings. Oh, this is an interesting selection. Rossini is still, to my mind, one of the most underrated composers of all time because he was simultaneously a classical composer, a composer of the classical era, which is when he wrote all of his operas, and a romantic composer when he wrote his last opera, William Tell, which was the model for grand opera that came later, or one of the models, along with, Auber's La Muette de Portici and a couple other goodies. And then his last works, which were almost uncategorizable. His piano works, his small chamber works, his Péché de Vieillesse, the Petite Messe Solennelle, they span 2 completely different eras, and he managed to encompass both of those eras while still remaining himself. And I don't think any other composer achieved that. It was a chameleon-like transformation and an absolutely amazing feat of artistic genius. And he's amazing. And I think the very fact that he was so uncategorizable makes him underrated, makes it hard for people to wrap their brains around what he did, because they are literally 2 separate worlds. Anyway, here we have some music from both of those worlds. And I think it's just really gives some indication of just how remarkable he was. So, first, the overtures. Well, I have 2 discs of overtures here. First, Claudio Abbado with the Chamber Orchestra of Europe on Deutsche Grammophon. Now, Abbado was unquestionably one of the great Rossini conductors. Rossini himself was extremely picky, obsessive-compulsive in his notation, in his habits. He actually indicated just how far the music stands should be from each musician and where they should put their candles, and probably to avoid a bonfire. But he was incredibly detailed, and Abbado was sort of a micromanager too, and they got along really well musically. Abbado made some beautiful opera recordings, which some of you may have in your lists, but his best Rossini recording, from my way of thinking, is that fabulous disc of overtures he did with the Chamber Orchestra of Europe, which restore all the original orchestrations and play them in the way that Rossini originally wrote them, for the most part. And I think that it's really just an exceptional tribute to fine musicianship and good scholarship. I really do. They are, of course, amazing pieces, delicious pieces, fabulously witty and enjoyable pieces, and they exist totally independently of the operas, to which they were attached. At least most of them do. Not all of them, but most of them. And there is no better Rossini record, except we also have to consider that Rossini was played in the bad old tradition, with the revised orchestrations and everything else, by some of the greatest conductors who ever lived, including Fritz Reiner and the Chicago Symphony. Reiner was also a micromanager. He was also incredibly into tiny little details and getting everything just perfect, with incredible and insane strictness and diabolical, sadistic, malicious glee when it came to the way he treated his players. And his Rossini Overtures disc is really amazing. Absolutely amazing. Listen in La Gazza Ladra to the main theme, the da-da-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, behind that da-da-da-da-da-dum, you hear the horns. Da-dum, whoop, da-da-da-da-da-dum, whoop. Listen to Rossini going, whoop. You've never heard horns going, whoop, piano, with more insouciant wit. Yes, that's what it is. Insouciant wit and precision. Every piece of the orchestration, it's like a little jigsaw puzzle. They all fit perfectly in place. It's incredibly rewarding to listen to. So those are the 2 overture discs. Now we're going to deal with some operas, a couple of them. Ermione. This is a tragedy, a real tragedy, a serious tragedy. Rossini wasn't known for doing tragedies, but he did, and he did them extremely well. He himself said that he was really best at comedy, and maybe he was, but his Neapolitan operas contain some of his most fascinating and experimental music. This one, for example, uses no secco recitative. Rossini gave it up in this opera. It has an overture that's twice interrupted by a chorus of lamenting Trojans. Yes, it takes place during the Trojan War. It's one of those stories. And it contains really fully fleshed out crazy characters. You've got Ermione, you've got Orestes and Pyrrho and Astionate and all these people running around trying to kill each other. And eventually they succeed. And Ermione is just a fantastic role. And in this performance, it's amazingly sung by Cecilia Gasdia, who was a terrific singer, and the orchestra is conducted by Claudio Scimone, who was a terrific Rossini conductor, with I Solisti Venetti, and I just think this opera is slamming. It's a powerful, passionate piece that you really need to hear to flesh out your view of what Rossini could achieve. It has really no precedent. It's in two perfectly balanced acts. It's just an incredible piece. Also, Tancredi. Tancredi was the opera that really made Rossini's reputation, and it was actually also a tragic opera in the old style. It was almost the ultimate opera seria in its forms, in its styles. It's where Rossini really sort of encompassed the grand tradition of Italian opera up to that point. And Marilyn Horne rediscovered, along with Philip Gossett, not the original, but Rossini actually wrote a tragic ending to Tancredi, which Marilyn Horne recorded in her recording, so it makes it even more fun. Normally in those days, even if it was a tragic opera, everything had to get how they end those opera series in Baroque form. Everything's okay at the end. Even the dead people are okay at the end. Well, they're not okay at the end of this one. And they actually use the tragic, quiet ending, which is really powerful. And of course, you can't have any Rossini greatest recording selection without Marilyn Horne, who was the person who, more than anybody else, revived Rossini and the tradition of bel canto singing and those roles he wrote for his later wife, Isabella Colbrand, and really just unbelievable singing and a fabulously evocative and gorgeous opera. Every number is so beautiful. So there you have it, my friends, the 5 absolutely greatest Rossini operas. And I'm really interested to see your list because there's so much here that you can't encompass in only 5 titles. It was a hard choice, but I decided to go with some of the least obvious choices. Oh my goodness, and I forgot one. What am I doing? The Piano Works. Of course, the Piano Works are the sins of his old age, 7 discs of them, with Paolo Giacometti on Channel Classics. Absolutely brilliant, wonderful, witty, indefinable piano pieces. Delicious and glitteringly played by Giacometti on a period piano, or a couple of them, and gloriously recorded. Yes, we have to do the piano music, and you've got to get to know some of it. It doesn't matter what, just go get some of it, or anything in this series with Giacometti. You're going to love it. So that's the 5. There we go. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and take care.